Hey yo, what's up? So today I want to make a new video about Throne and Liberty, and more specifically about my gear for one and stuff. And so a lot of change since my last video, uh, because a few weeks ago we got the new gear with the new dungeons, and also we got the runes. And so because of that, I kind of felt like I needed to make a new video just to update everything that I'm doing. In this video, I'm simply going to talk about the gear, and I'm not going to talk about the spells and the abilities and the different builds, because I feel like that's going to be way too long, and so I want to keep the video just about the gear and what I'm using, and also the runes, what I'm doing. And so one thing to keep in mind here is that I'm trying to optimize for both DPS and healing, and also I'm trying to optimize for PvP and also PvE. And so because of that, I'm trying to kind of be an hybrid in everything. And I'm going to talk a little bit about all these things and how I think about different things like that, okay? So let me remove the camera right here, and I'm gonna jump right in, okay? Alright, so as we can see here, currently this is my gear that I have right here, and as you can see, my combat power here is about 41-36, and I have all the runes. I don't have all the best runes, but I have all the synergies, and that's kind of what it is right now. And those are my stats that I'm using right here, and I'm just gonna go through all of it, and I'm gonna talk about what I'm trying to aim for. And so first of all, I still have the book here. Um, I still use this, and the only thing that I added is obviously the runes here. And here, the runes that I'm choosing here, this is mostly for PvP here. So I'm going for strength and also critical hit damage reduction. And so this is, I think the critical hit damage reduction is probably best for PvP, and the strength is also probably best for PvP. And so if you're trying to optimize for PvE, you might go for something else. But since I'm doing both PvP and PvE, I'm going for these runes here, and it's basically the same thing for my staff. Okay, strength and critical hit damage reduction. One thing that is kind of not so good about my build and my gear is that I'm quite squishy, okay, and so because of that, having the critical hit damage reduction is actually very important. And so all the gear that I have here, this is mostly cloth and some leather here, and so because of that, I might not get all the damage reduction and the defenses that you might get from like plate armor or things like that. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind here. And here I'm going for the Shadow Harvester mask with the mana regen, range endurance, and cooldown speed. And I'm basically using only the first set effect of the Shadow Harvester. And so this is getting me critical hit damage increased by 14%. And so this is really good for really any DPS, honestly. And I think this is probably like the first set here, the first set effect is probably the best, the best in slot for all the DPS, I think. And the only thing that makes me a little bit unsure is that I don't know if the critical damage increase also works for healing. And so you see this set effect, what it does is that when you crit, it does more damage, but the heals can also crit. And so I'm not sure if the crit also works for healing. And so that's something that that we need to test here. But so yeah, that's one thing that I'm unsure about. And so that's the first thing that I have here. And then I also have the Swirling Essence robe, and this is probably the best in slot for the DPS as well, for all the DPS, because it gives a lot of stats, and it also gives an heavy attack chance. And so the heavy attack chance is very, very valuable, and it also gives a lot of stats. And so because of that, it is a very valuable chest armor. And I forgot to talk about the stats here, but you see, I'm going for the boots and the mask because those are the piece armor that gives the most stats, and that's why I'm going for those actually. And then the gloves, I'm going for the Ascended Guardian gloves and also for the Ascended Guardian pants. And I want to do that because I'm getting the a second set effect, which is the cooldown speed, 7.5 cooldown speed. And so it reduces a lot your cooldowns. And so because of that, I kind of like that a lot. And the traits, before I was going for evasion, but one thing that I realized is that now that it chance is really easy to get, many people are optimizing for a chance, and so unless if you're going for evasion, you have to go all in for evasion. So what I'm thinking right now is that I'm kind of trying to go for triple endurance, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to go for melee endurance, range endurance, and also magic endurance. The only thing that I still need to change here is this chest. I still have the melee evasion, so that's something that I might want to change at some point for melee, either melee endurance or magic endurance. So that's kind of what I think about that, because I'm going for endurance because I want to be able to be versatile, be like, I want to be able to like go against any DPS type, if that makes sense. And so by going triple endurance, I'm reducing the DPS of all the weapons and everybody. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. And I'm going for a little bit of mana regen here. And this is kind of a test here. So instead of going for the magic evasion on this mask and also on this chest here, I have magic evasion. I'm choosing to go for mana regen because mana is quite important, and I want to make sure that I have enough mana. And so mana regen also helps you a lot with when you use inner peace. And so because of that, I want to make sure that I have enough mana. And so that's a test that I'm doing. But if I see that I'm okay with mana, I might go for even more endurance. But I'm kind of testing right now with this. So it's always to find out the balance between mana and being tanky enough, if that makes sense. And so that's what I'm going for right now. The cape, it's still the same. I haven't changed it. So I'm not thinking about changing it as well. And so I think it's really good for DPS, Supreme Devotion. And so that's kind of what it is. And here I'm going for the Blessed Templar Choker. And I'm thinking about changing it actually, but I think it's, again, this is really good for mana, and this is one of, like, since I'm thinking about changing it, that's also why I'm going for the mana regen on my gear here with the traits. And so I'm thinking about changing it because there's also this clasp of the Conqueror that, if you check properly, it gives more stats, and it also gives mana regen. And so because of that, I kind of want to go for this necklace instead. So as you can see, I have it in my inventory here, and I started putting some trait on it. And so I'm thinking about changing for the clasp of the Conqueror. And as for the synergy on it, I don't really care about the runes right now. I just put the best blue runes that I can get. And again, I'm going for the critical hit damage reduction because I'm doing PvP, and so it allows me to be more tanky. And I'm also going for 2 wisdom. And here I also have the bracers of the Primal King. And this is also another piece that I might try changing, but at some point. But right now I'm still using these. And I'm using the attack speed and the max health. And I think this is probably one of the best synergy that you can get. And for the ring, I'll also have the Band of Universal Power. And I go for strength and max health. And that's kind of what it is. And then the ring, I use the Sapphire Dimensional Band. Just like the other ring, I use max health and also strength. And for the belt, I use the Belt of Bloodlust. And the synergy that I use on it is movement speed and critical hit damage reduction. And so again, this is for mostly for PvP. And so if you're trying to optimize for more PvE, I would probably go for maybe more stats or maybe more offensive stats instead. And so instead of having the critical hit damage reduction, maybe you could go for something else. Let me see if I can get something here. Let me see. So if you're going for more PvP, I would probably go for maybe the cooldown speed. I think the cooldown speed might be better actually. So maybe strength and cooldown speed for PvE, I mean. Because in PvE, I think it's mostly about offensive stats. And here, the gear that I have, I think it is mostly for PvE. All the gear that I have here is mostly for PvE, but I put PvP traits and I put PvP synergies and PvP runes, and so that's kind of how I see things. And as you can see here, those are my stats right here. And so I'm going for 50 strength at least, because the 50 strength gives you heavy attack chance, and so that's really good. That's why I'm getting, like, on all these synergies, I'm usually getting the strength, because it allows me to level up my strength. And I think like any DPS should at least get the 50 strength because of the heavy attack. And so that's kind of what I'm going for. And then the dexterity here, I don't level it that much, because before that I was going for 40 dexterity, but I realized that the bonus damage is kind of underwhelming, so I figured that I would only stop at 30 dexterity. And because of the critical chance, and the critical chance goes very well with the set bonus of the Shadow Harvester, and so I kind of stick to it. I kind of stick to the 30 dexterity, and that's just what I like about it. And wisdom, I usually go again for the 50 wisdom too, because of the cooldown speed. I kind of like that. I kind of enjoy that. It reduces my cooldowns, and I think it's really helpful. And then the perception, that's one thing that I'm kind of unsure about, because by default, I'm getting a lot of perception from my gear. And so, yeah, you see, just with my gear, I have 48 perception. And so that's a lot of perception. And so I think ideally, I mean, in PvE, I think you should stop at 40. And so if you're only doing PvP, I think you should maybe remove some of these perception gear and stick to 40, because I mean, the range is pretty good, but the range is only really useful in PvP, because it allows you to reach your teammates and your enemies at range. And also the 60 perception is also really useful for PvP. And so I think I think 40 perception is more than enough if you're doing PvE. But if you're doing PvP, I think it can be valuable to go to 50 perception if you want more range. And if you want more hits, you can go to even 60 perception. And so for now, that's kind of what I'm playing with. And that's kind of what it is for now. So I kind of go something like this. So those are my stats here. So that's what I'm going for. But it's not exactly perfect. It's not exactly what I'm wishing to go for, but I'm going to show you exactly what I'm trying to build here, okay? And so here, this is kind of the build. This is quest log. This is the build that I just created, and I'm going to put it in the description if you want to look into this. And so this here is kind of what I'm aiming for, if you can see here. And so you have the clasp of the Conqueror, and you still have the bracer of the Primal King. And so here you go for the 60 perception. Here I even go to 60 strength, and that also gives me more health. And so that can be interesting here. And one thing that you might do in PvP, if you want to do PvP, is that you might want to reach 70 strength instead of 50 or even 60. And so one thing that you might want to do if you want to do some PvP is that you could replace this one for um, the excavator one here, and then instead of having the bracer of the primal king, you could go for the bracers of unrelenting, and so because of that, that gives you more strength, which gives you more health, more defenses, and overall more defensive stats. And so that can be very valuable. And so here the bracelet is quite cool because yes, it gives you strength, but it also gives you collision resistance and bind resistance that can be really helpful in PvP. And so that basically gives you more strength, which is very valuable in PvP. And so because of that, you might be able to do maybe something like this. You have 70 strength. You have only 40 perception, but you're a little bit more tanky here. So that's something that you might want to try here. Simply changing the one. I mean, this one is more expensive and more rare. It is more difficult to get. And here, the braces of unlenting is kind of easy to get. So that's something that you might want to do. And so this could be a PvP build that you could try doing with more strength. And other than that, you could go with what I was doing here. And so for now, this is kind of what I'm aiming for. Then I might change my bracers and my wand at some point. We'll see how that goes. Because the problem with this build that I have is that it is quite squishy, okay? It is quite squishy. And ideally, with this build, you kind of want to stay at range and you don't want to get... You want to stay kind of outside the fight and just stay at range, right? And so what I do usually in PvP in the arena is that I play a lot of LOS, and so if there's, for example, a pillar or something, I just stick around the pillar to easily like move around, so that way the pillar is able to protect me. And so it is quite squishy. You can build a little bit of endurance. I have a little bit of endurance, but not that much. And it is quite squishy. It doesn't have that much evasion and so here I still have some melee evasion, but I'm gonna change for melee endurance. But the problem with this is that it is very squishy, especially against crossbows. The crossbows, when I duel them, they're always able to one-shot me, and the spin to win is also very dangerous. And so this build is very squishy here, and so it's good for PV. I think it can be good for PvE, but in PvP it is very squishy. And for now, that's kind of what I'm building for. And I'm able to do DPS and healing, and so depending on what I want to do, I can just use this gear here. And I also have the ascended gear that I might try leveling at some point to get maybe the skill heal 25%. And so if you only want to stick to healing, then I think that this set can be very valuable. If you only want to do healing, and talking about healing, the best healer is also wand and longbow. And so one thing that I started doing is that I started leveling a bow to maybe at some point start playing wand and bow, because this is literally the best healer, and also bow and staff is also the best DPS. And so I think that for me, if I were to choose a third weapon, it would definitely be the longbow. And so because of that, I started leveling the Carnix Nether bow here, and so that can be interesting as well. And if I look at my gear that I have, also just some random gear, I also have the Aridus Garld voice staff. And I think this stuff can be good in PvE, but what I don't like is that in PvP, it's not very good, and I don't really like the weaken chance here. And so I have it in my inventory, but it's been sitting there for a few weeks and even months. So I kind of like the Rebromancer staff. But for PvE, I think the Aridus, if you're only sticking to PvE, I think the Aridus staff might be good because of the effect here that can be very valuable. And I'm changing all this gear, but I still have my old gear, which was the Swirling Essence gear. And as you can see, I still have the helm, I still have the gloves, and I still have the shoes here, and I'm keeping them because what I really like about the Swirling Essence gear is that it gives a lot of range. And so the gloves, for example, they give you a lot of range. And if you go for the 4-set bonus, it gives you 10% range. And so I think that in PvP especially, having a lot of range is very valuable because it allows you to be like very far away from the fight and still be able to heal everybody and still be able to hit everybody if you're doing DPS. And so I think in PvP, having a lot of range is very valuable. And so I'm keeping it for now to see what's happening. And for now, I'm kind of going for this gear. And the thing is that in PvE, having range is not that valuable, and so you can usually get more valuable stats, because usually in PvE, I mean, unless you have like some sort of passive bonus. I know, for example, that if you're going for the two black staff, I mean, being at range gives you more DPS, if that makes sense. But I don't have any of this, so I think the range can be valuable in PvP, but like it's not increasing my DPS for now in any way. And so that's kind of what I think. I still have the gear here, but we'll see what happens with it. And so that's kind of my gear for now. The way I see it, the way I see my gear is that it's kind of a mix. Most of the gear that I have is mostly for PvE, but I'm putting traits and synergies for PvP, if that makes sense. And so it allows me to do both PvE and PvP. I'm not the best in anything, but it allows me to be comfortable in any game mode. So that's kind of what I like, and that's kind of what I'm aiming for now. And that's pretty much it for my video, I guess. All right, peace.